You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on Fox Sports 920 The Jersey.
4:17 is the time in the Princeton Orthopedic Associates studios, getting ready for divisional weekend. Also have to talk some Eagles and Giants, so let's do that right now with Charley Casserly of the NFL Network, and of course, the longtime former NFL general manager is kind enough to join us right now. Charley, Zach Gelb, thanks for coming on again, and how are you?
Great here with you.
Well, thank you. I'm doing great. Thank you for coming on. So the Eagles right now, let's start off with the Birds. They had a good start and then a very poor finish to their season. But overall, you take a look and you walk away with Carson Wentz and you get a pretty successful year one under the North Dakota State product. Now it's all about Howie Roseman surrounding this team with more talent. Where's your confidence in Howie, Charley?
Well, he's executive of the year for getting Wentz. I mean, you're picking, 12th or 13th, and you come away with Carson Wentz at 2? I mean, that's executive of the year. Now, the rest of this thing, they got to get some things solved here. And, you had a change there with Chip being involved. So I think we just have to go forward on this. Howie's made some good selections when he was back before, and I have confidence in him. I think the needs are clear. They got to get a wide receiver or two, running back, okay? I think corner's a need. So, those are things that they have to get. But I think he did a remarkable job moving to get Wentz and then getting most of the deal back.
When you take a look at this upcoming draft, not only this draft, but the one after that is very essential for the success in the future years of the Philadelphia Eagles. I think the two biggest needs on this team are cornerback and wide receiver. How do you approach this draft if you're Howie, who has had a questionable drafting history in his past?
Well, I think you just approach it the way you do others. The coaches are going to be involved. You're going to evaluate the players, and you're going to grade them, and you're going to hopefully match them the way the coaches want as far as what they're looking for and what you're going to do. So, they've taken some good players in the past. So I have confidence in what they can do, and you learn from your mistakes and you see how you adjust.
Would you be all for maybe possibly trading up to get Mike Williams, the Clemson wide receiver, or just when you have so many needs, would you just stay pat at where you are?
Well, I think you win with stars, but you certainly have to have depth. So there's a positive to both things there. But right now, I haven't spent enough time on the draft to know what the options are on where you're picking versus what your alternates are. So I think it's a little bit too early to get into that for me, anyway.
But one more thing on the draft, and I know they're still a long times away from the draft, like you were saying, but we all saw that Joe Mixon video, and people are going to now speculate where Joe Mixon will go. When you have a player that just had an awful off-the-field issue, there's no way other than saying that what he did was despicable. When you're interviewing this guy at the Combine and talking about him in your pre-draft evaluations, what would be some things that you would ask him?
Well, first of all, I don't know enough about him to be able to make that decision. When we were faced with Lawrence Phillips, we took him off the board, okay? And I don't know what the parallel is between the two of them and what exactly they did on it. I mean, I've read the reports. I haven't watched any video on the thing, but I knew exactly what Lawrence Phillips did, and we just took him off the board. I think what you're trying to do is you almost need more of a psychological evaluation. I'm not sure that you can, just in a question and answer for us who aren't trained in this, can get answers that can tell you why and what's the percentage of it happening again. I think you need a psychologist to probably help you on something like that. But, you try to get down the circumstances. Has there been anything that's happened since then? Try to get a feel on, what kind of remorse he has, if he has any remorse. And you try to get some feeling about his relationships with women, and they're all going to say they're not going to do it again. We got that, but you just try. It's more the whole character of the person, and not so much just this incident. It's the inner makings of the person, because he'll say he's sorry and won't do it again, but you try to get deeper than that on a person.
You know that whoever drafts Joe Mixon, there's going to be a lot of public backlash, and deservingly so, because the video, what I saw was just absolutely horrific. When you're in a position of power like that, are there teams that maybe you say, I'm not going to make that move just because you fear that public backlash? Have you ever been in a situation like that?
No, I haven't. I've been fortunate in that. When we took Mario Williams in Houston, there was a tremendous backlash, not obviously for character, but the owner stood by us, and the owner was all for it, and the owner took the heat just like all the rest of us did. So I think there were some other people in the organization that didn't want to do that, and I think they were worried about the repercussions. But it was the right move, and I give Bob McNair credit for recognizing it and then standing behind it. And I think that's what you're going to need. In this kind of a situation, there is no defense for it. Okay, Mario Williams is just an opinion as him as a player, but there is no defense for the one that Mixon had.
Charley Casserly with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show. Another move that the Eagles are going to look at is maybe bringing back DeSean Jackson. There's been a lot of rumors. What type of deal, if you were Howie Roseman, would you offer to DeSean Jackson?
Well, I don't. I'm not sure what the money is. I think that's going to be maybe an open market deal. He's not an elite receiver. I don't know that he ever was an elite receiver. He's a specialist. The guy can run deep and make big plays downfield, and that's important. That's good. I think he still has his speed. I think he turned it on at the end of the year knowing he was a free agent, and I think he was angling for a contract at the end of the year. With Washington, they didn't always get him the ball deep, so I think his numbers are less than probably what they should be because of the system he was in, and so it had nothing to do with him. I think he'll be a dollar more guy. Whoever pays him a dollar more, that's where he's going to go.
And the interesting part of this is because a lot of Philadelphia Eagles fans, they just assume that, hey, DeSean Jackson's going to be coming back to Philadelphia. But if you take a look at it from the Washington perspective, they have a decision to make, and that is, do they pay Pierre Garçon or do they pay DeSean Jackson? Who do you think Washington will pay at the end of the day?
They love Garçon. They love his toughness and his dependability. They like what Jackson gives. Garçon, to me, seems to be more of a favorite here, but I'm not really sure which way they go with it. I don't know. I would keep Jackson unless the guy is such a problem in the locker room. Then I got to get rid of him.
All right, let's go from two wide receivers to a star in this league, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. with the New York Football Giants. I didn't have a big issue with the yacht trip, but after the game, punching a hole in the wall, I get that stuff happens, but just with the past of Odell, I think he needs to tone it down, and the Giants have admitted that. You saw Jerry Reese come out and say that at the end of his press conference for the year. If you were in charge of the Giants, how would you handle that tricky Odell Beckham situation?
Well, I think what Jerry did, I mean, hey, you got to grow up here now. Punching walls isn't going to do anything except maybe break your hand. And what good is that going to do if you're middle of the season? So he's an emotional guy on the field. That's part of his strength. He's a very talented player that maybe didn't have the best game the other day, and he didn't. He's played better than that. But he's got to have his priorities straight. He's got to understand the big picture. Whether that trip to Miami had any effect in the game, that's hard to tell. My question would be, did it affect him during the week in practice? Because that could have affected the game. If it didn't affect him in practice, then, I'm not sure I would, put much stock in it. It just doesn't look good. That's really, it doesn't pass the eyeball test, and it's one more thing that you have to deal with that you really shouldn't have to deal with.
From a GM's perspective, because you know how essential Odell Beckham is to the success of the Giants, that offense was all on the catches and the big plays made by Odell Beckham Jr. this year. Yes, he has to grow up, but he's also an emotional player, as we know, and that's a tricky situation. So when you just take a look at it, how difficult is that when you're a general manager? And I know it's a business and Odell Beckham's a grown man, but the approach in that from a general manager standpoint, how difficult is that sometimes for a GM?
Well, the coach to me always is the one who has to handle the discipline. He handles the players. You talk to the coach and give me your opinion on things, but the coach has got to, find a way to connect with this guy where the coach will listen to him. And sometimes it's not just, hey, do this. Well, doesn't always work. You got to get a relationship with the player, get him to trust you, and then talk to him. And that's your best way of communicating with all players, or all employees too, not just football players, not just wide receivers that are temperamental. That's just the standard way to deal with people. Get to know them first, and you get to trust, and then they'll trust you back, and you care for them, they'll care for you. So that's kind of the philosophy to me, what you do in managing people. Guy's an immense talent, and it's you can't target the guy enough, in my opinion, because this guy just consistently beats coverage one-on-one.
Charley Casserly with us right now on the Zach Gelb Show from the NFL Network. And, of course, the former NFL general manager. You can follow him on Twitter at Charley Casserly. Very convenient for the former NFL general manager. Charlie, the big news today in the NFL is that the San Diego Chargers are moving to L.A. What was your reaction when you saw that?
Not really surprised. I mean, Dean Spanos has been angling for a stadium for a long time. Hasn't been able to come up with one. There was a deadline involved. It's not something that he wanted to do, I'm sure. I'm sure he wanted to stay there. But there's a point in time where you've got to move on, and this evidently became the time he had to make a decision.
That job is not really attractive right now, and they don't have a lot of juice moving to L.A., and until that team starts winning, a lot of people in L.A., the fickle fan, is just not going to care. How tough is it to hire a coach there right now? And I know there's always going to be someone that is going to want that opportunity, but there's not a lot to sell right now with the Chargers.
Well, I disagree. I don't think they'll have any trouble getting a coach. They got some talent. Rivers is still capable of winning games for him. Melvin Gordon on offense. Keenan Allen. He's come back from his injury. Williams developed as a wide receiver. They've got some tight ends. Gates. And so he's good. And the tight end from Arkansas, Hunter, he's got ability. So they got a chance on offense, and they got some pass rushers and some cover guys. So to me, it's the second best job out there. It's going to be a tough sell in L.A., especially if you're starting off with a 30,000-seat stadium.
In terms of questions in this interview process, because you've been through a lot of these coaching hirings, what type of questions do you really ask a coach when you're making one of those hires?
Well, to me, they're all practical questions. For example, how do you motivate your team? How do you motivate players individually? How do you motivate them as a group? You've lost 3 games in a row. How do you avoid the players tanking it and quitting on you? So, how do you handle a situation like that? Your philosophy on taking players who've had drug problems in the past. What is your philosophy on that? So it's a lot of situation-type questions.
Another thing that I'm curious about, just with the moving that's going on from San Diego to L.A., this causes a lot of speculation of where will there be a next team formed, what could be another destination for possibly a team one day. And 2 locations that you've heard the commissioner talk about before is Vegas and then London. I would never want an NFL team full-time in London, but what is your take on those 2 destinations for NFL teams?
Well, I'm not sure where the gambling plays. I mean, that's something the league has to make a decision on that. One time we were in Houston, we're talking about building a facility, and one of the parcels of land that we looked at was across the street from a racetrack. I said, I don't think we want to be near a racetrack, so let's pass on that one. By the way, one of the other ones was next to a prison. I passed on the prison, too.
Not good options.
I know. It's just it's hard to say there as to what will happen in that situation, I think.
Do you think the league plays too many games in London right now?
No, as long as they're selling and they're making money. I don't know if they make money, but it's as long as they're selling. A team logistically in London, I think, would be a nightmare. What do you do in the off season? Do you maintain offices over there? I mean, obviously you do, but do your coaches stay there? Do your players stay there? It's Sunday and 2 guys get hurt, and you want to bring in somebody to try out. Do you fly them to London? Okay, I mean that's where you're going to be. So you can't say, we'll work them out in the United States and sign them and send them over. No, the coaches have to see them. Your medical people has to see them. Recruiting free agents, man, that have to be a nightmare. Going across the pond to be able to interview them and work them out and do those kinds of things. So logistically, I think it's a nightmare to have a team in London.
I agree with you. Charley Casserly, before we let you run, let's get your thoughts on some of the games coming up this weekend as he joins us right now on the Zach Gelb Show, Fox Sports 920 The Jersey. In the AFC, you got to like New England this week. And in terms of the other game, Pittsburgh and Kansas City, where do you go on that one?
I think I'll go with Pittsburgh. I know Pittsburgh beat them the first time, but I'm going to throw that one out. There were a couple of turnovers in the game. Pittsburgh dominated the game, don't get me wrong. I just think Pittsburgh's offense is just too good for the offense of Kansas City. I think Kansas City can't run the ball effectively, and I think they'll have trouble throwing the ball. They're very average to me as far as getting the ball downfield to make big plays. They're more of a conservative passing game. I think trying to beat Pittsburgh, you're going to have to score some points.
And then on the other side in the NFC, you got the Cowboys going up against Aaron Rodgers, and then you have Seattle and Atlanta, a bunch of rematches this weekend. Who do you like coming out of the NFC to get to the conference championship game?
I think Atlanta will win, but it's going to be a very close game. Last time, Seattle did a great job. Seattle beat them, of course, as we know that. And I know there was a controversial penalty at the end of the game not called against Richard Sherman. However, during the game, Seattle was down. And they came back in that game. Excuse me, Atlanta was down. They came back. And Kyle Shanahan did a brilliant job in the second half of getting Julio Jones and the tight ends more involved. Schematically, he had some brilliant things. So, is he going to have enough brilliant things this week? But Seattle can beat them because Seattle's defense really played Atlanta well last time. And Russell Wilson, he can run around and score some points. Dallas, I think, will beat Green Bay much the way they did last time. Run the ball, run the ball, run the ball.
When you have two rookie players that are just such a big part of what you do, and obviously Ezekiel Elliott's won a national championship in college, is there any fear to see what type of players they'll be in the postseason? Yeah, they've had so much success this year, but just with the pressure that's in the postseason, or is that just a myth, Charlie?
Well, I don't think it's a myth because there is more pressure. I'd be disappointed if either of these guys didn't perform at the level they played at during the regular season. That offensive line makes it simple for them.
Charlie, we appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Okay, good to be with you.